All right, good morning and welcome to beautiful Kitsilano Park. And today I want to talk a little bit about some of the concepts we've been covering in class, torque, specificity, and segmental interaction principle. And of course, as usual, I got my rackets because that's what I'm good at, so I can give you good examples of how these concepts tie into tennis. And then the key for you is, like I always say, is to take that same concept and connect it with your sport or your profession, whatever you're doing. And so today I want to talk about torque, and it's a good example because I just had a young kid last summer who said, I want to create more power on my forehand. And so creating more power is creating more torque. And so as we know from our formula, torque is force and distance, perpendicular distance. And so, generating a lot of torque, number one thing I would tell him, I'd keep it in simple words for him, but we want to generate force. And I wouldn't use torque because especially he was only 12 years old, so torque wouldn't be a great word for him. But we want to generate what I would say is racket head speed, and that equals force, that equals torque. And so this is the motion really that we're going to look at today, is this, and this is a torque motion. And so there's a little bit of torque in the shoulder, because this is a torque here, and maybe a little bit in the elbow, but really the key in the forehand, what I would tell him, is this motion here, and getting that high racket head speed. And so in order to do that, we have to put the butt cap back, and then we have to come through like that, and that's the motion of the torque. I had him do a bunch, and after about 20, I could see him doing this, right? Because it's a new motion, and the body adapts to the stresses you put on it that we've talked about. And so the body hadn't adapted to that stress for him. And so I stopped him right away and said, okay, let's revisit that next day, because if we do a few hundred of those, we might very well start developing some tennis elbow. And so we stopped and then we revisited it. And one thing I can do, and because there's a lot of physios and doctors in the course, is talk a little bit about training that. And so one exercise, I've got this set up here. One exercise you can do is grabbing the racket. We just have a nice light band here. And I can just get the racket in those certain spots, like right there, that's the one I need. And just a little bit of force I'm applying here. And this is an isometric contraction of my forearm muscle. And the reason it's isometric is because the angle doesn't change. And the length of the muscle isn't changing. And I would just get him to do some of these. And I want that racket in the, speaking of specificity, I want that racket in the exact position that forehand would be hit. So right here. And I'm just going to apply a little bit of pressure with the band, hold that for a count of 10, and then relax. And this is also what you're probably learning in some of the other courses, of PNF stretches. And I can go a little bit farther back, same thing. Apply a little bit of pressure, a little bit of force, and then relax and do that. And nothing, especially early on, nothing too strong here. And then I can move it into the different spots that the racket goes. So next phase is here, same thing. Apply a little pressure and relax. And then move on all the way through to the follow through and do a whole bunch of those. And I would have him do that, and that would be simple, and that would just start conditioning the muscles. And like I said, it's important with our specificity that we get that racket right in the exact spot. So if he hits the forehand with this angle, make sure it's in that angle for the exercise and not something like that, because the forearm has a whole bunch of tiny muscles, or not necessarily tiny, but there's a lot of muscles in the forearm, and we want to train and condition the exact muscles that are involved in the forehand. And so that's something that would be good for injury prevention, injury recovery, as long as it's nice and light. And we can progress a little bit and overload those muscles as we get better. And that's certainly over time going to increase his the power that he gets with torque. So that's that. Segmental interaction principle I want to talk a little bit about, because that was one last day and I had a reading for you. And I want to make sure everybody gets that. Hopefully all of you got a chance to bite into that reading a little bit and just really understand that concept. And so what that concept is saying is, if I want to create this torque right here in order to create more power on the forehand, I need to decelerate the segment that's proximal to here. So at some point when I'm coming forward, I need to decelerate the forearm to increase the torque at the distal spot, which is at the wrist and at this spot here, if that makes sense. So I'm going to create a positive acceleration, and then at some point at contact, I create a negative acceleration in order to fling that racket forward. So that's what that's saying, and you can put that into any of your sports. If you're kicking a soccer ball, same thing. The lower leg and the ankle, at some point you have to decelerate to fling that toe forward, and that was the example that I had, or the activity that's on that reading with the ruler or the pencil, where when you fling it forward, you got to decelerate at some point. So those are all good examples of the segmental